In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this side-scrolling animation of an astronaut taking a moonwalk. And this will be for exercise 3, side-scrolling animation, and this will also help you understand how to do project 3, which is going to be a side-scrolling animation. And for anyone listening or watching this on YouTube, this is for my motion graphics class at Kennesaw State University. So anyway, first thing you're going to need to do, guys, is you're going to need to go to our D2L class, and you're going to need to download 2 files. One is this Moonscape Art PSD. It's a Photoshop file. And then you're going to need to do this Astronaut Art PSD file. And you will need to create a folder and put those files in that folder, okay? And I want to just stress this because anytime, as I've stated before, we create a project in After Effects that includes files that we need to put in there, you need to create a folder first. Then put the files in there, and then when you save your After Effects file, you save it to the same folder. And this, by the way, after you save it and you keep working on it, it will create this little folder here, which will show all the auto saves, okay? So I just want to point that out. So let's go back over to After Effects. And what you're going to need to do is we're going to go to a new project, okay? And we're going to go new composition, okay? So you want to click this button right here. And what we're going to be creating is we're going to go and create, we're going to choose the preset for Social Media Landscape 1920 by 1080, okay? And we're going to set the duration for this for 20 seconds. If you can see that right there. All right. Now, let's go forward. We'll leave the background black. So we want to come over to our project window here. And we want to double click. And that will bring up this where we can open. Now, if that doesn't happen, because usually that will work, and I've had a few issues, you can also click inside here and do Command or Control I, and it will bring this up, okay? We are looking for your folder. You want to look for your folder. And if you saved it on your desktop, you want to look on your desktop. And then we want to find that Moonscape Art.psd. We don't want to open it yet. We want to import as composition retain layer sizes. We'll go click on open here, and then this comes up. And it should still say composition retain layer sizes here. And then we want to make it editable layers. And that's what we'll need to bring in. And so we click OK. Now, nothing has happened yet. So what we're going to need to do is go over to this right here. It's already highlighted. It says Moonscape Art. And it has a little film footage looking thing right here next to it. We're going to drag that down into our timeline. And it will show this, okay? Now, we don't see the whole thing because, you know, it's actually kind of like, this is like layers. This is like a group right here, I should say here. And all the layers are concealed inside. And if we double click that, it'll show us all the layers. We'll do that in just a moment, okay? Because the first thing I want you to do is we need to zoom out enough so that we can actually scroll this thing. And I'm going to move this. I'm going to get my selection tool and just move this so we are at the start here, okay? And as I move it, hold your shift key down so now it will constrain it, so it will, and then we can let off the mouse and then let off the shift key, okay? And then let's go down and make sure we're on this layer and hit the P key so it brings up position, and we are going to hit the stopwatch like that, okay? Now let's move our timeline indicator all the way to the end here, and then we're going to drag this, and I start dragging it, and then I hold down my shift key so it will constrain it. And then we want to bring this all the way to the end here. And you can have a little bit left over here, but this should be fine, okay? And so now when we hit the space bar, this is what plays. Okay? Now we'll just drag the timeline. I don't want to play the whole thing because it takes a while. One other thing I want to point out here is I have my resolution here set. So this is, you can have it set for full. Now, mind you, this image is at 150 pixels per inch. It's really big. But I have it set for half, so it will render out faster. Now, if you're working on a computer and it's running slower, you can always render out as a third or a quarter, okay? and it's going to look a little choppier at a quarter, but you know, it's just rendering it, showing you what you've done to animate it, okay? And when you render it out, you can render it out as full or half, okay? We'll talk about that when we get to rendering this. So anyway, I keep this at half. We're going to come over here to this layer here and double click it. And like I said, this is like a group here, because when we double click it, it opens up all these layers. It opens up another composition, okay? And in this composition, you can see the whole thing here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our layer 2. It says front rock, and we're going to hit the P key. All right, so it brings up position, and then we're going to click the stopwatch, and then we're going to drag over the time indicator over to about 6 seconds, maybe a little even past that, okay? And we're going to drag this rock a little bit off the picture here, okay, like this. I didn't even go all the way off. I just moved it to there, okay? Now, let's move our timeline indicator forward. You can see what it's doing here. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Comp 1. I'm going to come over here to Comp 1, double-click it, or just click it. And now let's play it. And so this is what's happening now. And this is called parallaxing. Parallaxing is when you have, you know, it has to deal with having those shapes in the foreground moving faster than the shapes in the background. You know, if you're driving or riding in a car, you look out the window, this is what you see happening is the foreground shapes move faster, the background shapes stay pretty stationary as you're going by here, okay? And it's called parallaxing, and it gives us this illusion of depth, all right? So let's go back into our composition, Moonscape Art. We'll just click on it, okay? We don't have to double click it, we just click it. And what we're going to do next is, let's just zoom out a little bit more here. I can use my scroller wheel. Sometimes my scroller wheel works, sometimes it doesn't. And we want to be able to see this. Now I'm set this at 12.5 as far as my magnification, so I can see the whole thing here. But let's go down to the moon's surface and hit the P key. Hit the stopwatch, and make sure your timeline indicator is at the beginning before you hit the stopwatch, okay? We're going to move this all the way to the end here, the 20 seconds. And then we're going to move the moonscape over a little bit. We don't need to move it too far. I actually have more here, but if we move it too far, it's going to be going by too fast. I made too much moonscape here, okay? And then as I'm moving, I hold down my shift key, and then I let off the mouse, and then I left the shift key, so it will just constrain it. So let's go back to, and before I go back here, I want to point out something here. Let's go into Photoshop, and I'll show you what this file actually looks like. All right, so when you're making a side scroller, you're going to need to make some of the foreground larger if you have a ground here like I have here. And let me just click on this here, all right? And we're going to move this, and you see how much I've added here? And it goes outside the picture space. So if I wanted to add more here, by the way, I could just, you know, draw out more and paint more of this if I needed more of it, okay? This is the benefit of Photoshop over Procreate, okay? Procreate, you have things that go outside the border, they get cut. In Photoshop, they don't get cut, okay? So that's what I like about using Photoshop for this. Usually I will paint in Procreate, but you know, when it comes to actually setting this up, I will actually add more surface in Photoshop, okay? So I just want to point that out because this is actually going outside the composition. So let's go back to Comp 1 here, and back in After Effects, and we're going to click this, and now you can see what it's doing here. And now the ground here is moving faster than the background. And we're going to move one other thing too, okay? So I'm just going to let off, I'm going to hit the space bar again. Let's drag the timeline indicator to the beginning. Let's go back to Moonscape Art. Make sure your timeline indicator is at the beginning here. We're going to go to the mountains layer, which is layer 6. Hit the P key, so it brings up position. Hit the stopwatch. Move your timeline indicator to the end here, like this. And then let's just move that mountain just a little bit. Whoops, I double-clicked it by mistake. I'm going to close this window now. All right, so let's make sure we're on this mountain here. It just keeps doing that for some reason. I'll make sure I'm on the mountain layer. Okay, there we go. Mountain layer wasn't selected. Now we just hold down your shift key as you move it. We're not going to move it too far. We're going to move it a little bit, okay? So now let's go back to comp 1, and you can kind of see that it's moving too a little bit. And we're going to leave the background and the space and everything else the same here. But this is how you make something that looks like it has this illusion of depth by the method of parallaxing, okay? All right, that looks good. All right, so next what we're going to do is the moon. I call it the moon. Every time I refer to it, even when I'm practicing my tutorial for this, I call the Earth the moon, okay? I don't know why. Anyway, I want to see where that's going to go off the picture. It's going to go off about right here, okay? So what I want to do is I'm going to bring this to timeline indicator to about 6 here. And 6 seconds, that is, okay? And also, by the way, you can also zoom in on your timeline, which we'll have to do in a moment. But let's go back. We'll keep our zoomed all the way out here as far as our timeline. Go back to Moonscape Art, click on it. Let's go down to the Earth layer. And let's hit the position key, the P for position, hit the stopwatch for it. We're going to also do Shift S for scale, okay? And then let's drag this back, our timeline indicator back to the beginning, and I'm going to first reduce the scale, and we're going to reduce it, I don't know, maybe 50%, 49, 50, somewhere in there, okay? And then I'm going to move it to below, whoa, I just flipped it there. We're going to move this down here, and mind you, we can zoom in here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm using my space bar to use my grabber hand so I can move things around. And I like that because the space bar, we just let off the space bar and the grabber hand goes away, okay? And we go back to the selection tool. We're going to drag this down. We can hold down our shift key so it drags down perfectly. And so now, let's go back to comp 1 and see what happens here. So now we have what's called the Earthrise, which, by the way, would not happen because the moon does not rotate. And when I was creating this, I was just doing this because I thought it looks cool. And the only way you see an Earthrise is if you're orbiting the moon and going around the moon. But if you're on the moon, the moon doesn't rotate. The Earth's in the same position. It may get, and I just like the way that looks. That's why I'm putting this in the animation. So the next thing we're going to do is let's go over to Moonscape Art here, and we can zoom out here if we need to, but I'm just going to use my space bar for my grabber hand and drag us all the way over here to this module. We're looking at this command module, which is layer 1, okay? Now, I would like for this to appear somewhere, and let's just drag our timeline indicator over to, like, let's say, I don't know, we'll drag it over between 14 and 16 seconds, and go back to comp 1, and we don't see it. Let me go forward a little bit more here. So it doesn't come into picture until about 18 seconds. So we're going to make it come in a little sooner than that, okay? Like I said, we're going to bring it in about here. So I'm going back to Moonscape Art. We go back and forth here. Our timeline indicator stays the same, which is helpful, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to drag this down a little bit here. And I'm going to hit the P key. Okay. And I'm going to go and drag our timeline indicator forward here to the end. Or actually, we don't have to do the end. We could be somewhere between 18 seconds and 20 seconds, somewhere in there. We can play around with that. And then we're going to move this all the way up and out like this. So it's at an angle here, okay? Now let's go to comp 1 here, and let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go move my timeline indicator and see how this appears here. That's not bad, It actually comes into space, somewhere around frames, somewhere around the 16 here. Actually, a little bit before that. Good. Yeah, yeah. Okay. As long as it's towards the end and not at the very end. Okay. Now, I'm going to do some other things to this too. Okay, so let's go back to Moonscape Art. And we are going to, first of all, we're going to curve its trajectory by using this tool right here. It's our Convert Vertex tool. It's up underneath the Pen tool, okay? Remember, we used this before, okay? Another exercise. So we're going to use the Convert Vertex tool to actually do this so it goes like that, okay? Now, I'm going to do something else too, because I think it's kind of too stationary. We're going to rotate. So I'm going to do Shift R. We're still on the command module layer, layer 1. I'm going to rotate this just a little bit up like this, okay? And let's see what this looks like. Do I like it better rotated? Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should just keep it rotated. Yeah, I think it looks good like that. All right, so I'm going to scale this in just a moment, but I want to play with the speed at which this takes place, because right now it's happening, and what I'm saying is that even though we've got keyframes along the timeline, we can speed it up or slow it down at certain points. And one way to do this would be to take this first keyframe, and then we're going to right click, and we could and so I'm on this keyframe here. I'm right clicking, and I'm going down to keyframe assistant, and we're going to do easy out. Okay, so easy out does this. It's going to be a little slower going out, and then it's going to get a little faster, okay? And if you actually look at the dots on this line after doing that, the dots represent the frames, each frame of this as it goes along the timeline. And they're closer here down towards the beginning here. And as it goes away here, the dots are spaced further, and therefore it's going to move faster, okay? I'm going to do something else too, okay? I am going to select both of these because this is what I ended up doing for the other one that I had shown you. I'm going to select both of these keyframes here. I'm going to right click, go down to keyframe velocity. So, incoming velocity, outgoing velocity. I'm going to do outgoing at 100, okay? And the speed, we're going to raise this up a little bit. We'll see how far we can raise that up there. I'm going to do 50 maybe. We'll see what this looks like. Click OK. So now let's play this here. So it starts off slower and then it speeds up, okay? Which is cool. I like that look. Let's take a look at in Comp 1 to see if that looks okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to Moonscape Art again. And what we're going to do is let's drag our timeline indicator to the beginning here. And we'll try to be on the same keyframe. Now, here's the deal. If you want to make sure you're at the same keyframe, you can move in and zoom in on your timeline. You can see that this was at 15 seconds. All right, so I'm going to go and make sure I'm on this layer. Oh, I'm going to close this back up because this always pops up when if you double click your layer, that will happen, okay? So I'm going to just make sure I'm on the layer. We're going to do Shift T to bring up, make sure I'm on the layer here. Shift T to bring up opacity. Not T, did the wrong thing. Shift S, I apologize. So we're doing Shift S. We don't need opacity. We can play with opacity if we want to. I'm just going to leave it like that. That's okay. All right, so now let's take the scale and we'll scale it down a little bit here. Like that. I'm going to move this so that we can see where the other keyframe is located at. And maybe, actually, you know what? We're going to have to zoom out. So I'm going to go down here and zoom out so we can find the other keyframe. And I'm going to go, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, oops, I didn't install a keyframe. So let's go back here. Go back to where we were at. Hit the stopwatch on scale. So it installs a keyframe. Then let's move forward to where we were at, about 19 seconds. If we want to make sure we're in the same frame as the position, we can zoom in to see that. But let's scale this up, and we're going to scale it up past 100. So it's pretty large here, okay? Now let's go back to Comp 1 and take a look at this and see what this looks like. And it speeds up a little bit. It's good. It's good. I like it. Let me see. We might need to actually adjust this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go back to Moonscape Art, and so you're going to go back and forth between these two to make sure this works here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the scale keyframe forward a little bit more, so it will stay small a little longer. Now let's go back to Comp 1 and take a look at this and see how this looks. Okay, I'm going to move my timeline indicator and then hit the space bar and see how this is looking. Okay, oh, I like that. Very nice. Good. Okay. You know, I think this might be it. I don't think we need to really do anything else to it unless we want to try to make it look larger. And let's try that. Let's go to Moonscape Art again, and let's go where that keyframe makes it larger and bring it forward in our timeline. Okay, so I'm just moving the keyframes for the scale, you know. And let's see what we have when we go to composition, and then we'll just drag our timeline into Comp 1, that is. And then let's go and play it. I don't mind that. I think let's go just play out all the way through here to see. We're pretty much done with what we need to do to the moonscape, except for, as you saw there at the beginning there, we've got these little shapes there. We've got something that looks like a splash and something that looks like a shadow. And we're going to animate those later. All right, that's good. If we want to, we could rotate this a little bit more, but I think that's fine. What I'm talking about, we could rotate the module there. We could go all the way back here, maybe where this keyframe's located at, and we hit the stopwatch for rotation. We move it forward here, and we'll just rotate it. We'll line it up where the same one for the scale's at, and we'll rotate it just a little bit more so it's flatter at 0. So let's see if this changes it. I'm just being a little picky here, because this is what, to me, when you're working on a project in After Effects that includes art, it takes longer to do the art than it does the animation. And then it takes a little longer to just sort of fix things and to make things look better. Okay, because that can take a long time if you don't know what you're doing or you don't know what effect you want. Okay, and so I'm just watching this one last time here. Oh, I like that. That looks good. Okay, so that's the best I've seen it here. Now let's go back into Moonscape Art here, and we're in this composition now. And I'm going to drag my timeline aggregator to the beginning here. Okay, we can actually shrink the timeline down so we can get to things. Oh, here's the deal. Let's go back to Comp 1 for a second. All right, so we originally started this thing off at 20 seconds, but I decided, you know what? I want to make this last 25 seconds. So we're going to do this. We're on Comp 1. We're going to go to Composition Settings, and we're going to go down to Duration, and we're going to change that to 5. Now let's zoom out. We have to zoom this thing out down here as far as our timeline so we can see it. And here's the issue is everything will end if we move our timeline arcade forward here. It'll disappear here because we need to extend this layer. But we can't extend that layer because we need to go into Moonscape Art and do the same thing. And this is going to change some things here. So we'll have to move some keyframes in a moment. We're going to go to Composition Settings. Go to 5. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this may happen to you when you work on your project. You may start off with a project that's shorter and needs to be longer. So we'll do that. Let's go down to where the zoom for the timeline. We'll zoom all the way out. We'll do Command A or Control A, okay, since you're working on a PC. If you're on Mac, it's Command. And we're going to drag all the layers. So I selected all the layers. I'm dragging them all the way to the end here, okay? Now, let's take these keyframes for the mountains, move them back. It's the mountain and the moon surface. And drag this all the way to the end there, okay? And then let's see here. We'll move these slightly. I'm going to select all these keyframes for the command module. Just move those back a little bit. Let's go to Comp 1 and see how this looks. Now we're going to have to extend this further, okay? We're going to go and extend the layer further and bring this keyframe from position all the way to the end here. And now let's play this. I'm going to drag my timeline indicator before the command module comes into space here. And that works so well. I think I've got everything the way I want it to. You can play yours again to see what it looks like. But what we're essentially doing is we're adding more time to our timeline. And when we do that, we have to do it to both of these timelines. Okay? To both compositions. Because they are dependent upon each other. Okay? So next, we are going to bring in the astronaut, okay? So I'm going to go over to File, and actually not File New. We're going to go to Composition window. We're going to double click, okay? Then I'm going to go all the way down to, and look for this. It should be in there. Look at your folder. We're going to look for the astronaut art.psd. Same thing. We're going to do Composition Retain Layer Sizes. We're going to go to Open. We're going to make sure this stays as editable layer styles, okay? Click OK. And then what we're going to do is let's zoom out so we can kind of see our timeline here. I mean, we see the entire composition. And we're going to drag the astronaut, and you see this little thing here. It says astronaut art, and it looks like a little film strip next to it. We're going to drag that, and we're going to move this into our timeline underneath the dust layer, which is layer 3, and above the cast shadow layer. So it's like that. Okay, we're going to move this later on, but what I want you to do next is let's drag our timeline indicator to the beginning here, and let's double click the astronaut layer now, and then we'll open up all these layers. Okay, now I'm going to animate the astronaut, but I'm going to do something next. Okay, I'm going to make another comp. I know this gets a little confusing here, but just do as I'm doing here. We're going to select all these layers. Okay, I can hold down, I can do Command A, that would do it, okay, or Control A. Control A will select them all if you're on PC. Or you can select on one, hold down the Shift key and select the bottom one, okay. Now, we're going to right-click, come over to one of the layers, doesn't matter which one we're on, right-click, and we're going to do what's called Pre-Compose. This is how we make a group, more or less. We're going to move all of our attributes into this new composition. Click OK. So what it does is it makes this into one little thing here, and we're going to do that for a reason, because we're going to make a walk cycle and then loop it. So next thing you do is with this pre-comp 1, and we can name it differently if we want to, but I'll just leave it pre-comp 1 for this. We'll double click it, and now we see our layers again, okay? So if we go between these compositions, we got pre-comp 1, we got astronaut art, okay, and you see astronaut art is everything is condensed into one. And then we got moonscape art, and here it is down here. Anyway, we're going to go to pre-comp 1 again, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this little thing right here. This is our work area, okay? These lines, these blue things here, we're going to drag this in like this, okay? And we're going to drag it to 6 seconds. All right. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to composition, trim comp to work area. Okay. Now, This is only 6 seconds. If we go back to astronaut, you'll see it. It's shortened. We're doing this because we're going to make a walk cycle. I'm going back to pre-comp 1 here with all the layers. And we're going to loop it. So let's zoom in our astronaut here so we can see him better, okay? And one of the things we want to do is let's click on the torso layer for a second. So we're going to click on this, and you see this center here? We're going to move that with the pan from behind tool. This one right here, pan behind, anchor point tool. And we're going to move that down to one of his feet. We're going to move this down to this foot right here. Because later on, we're going to scale him, okay? And we're going to do it from the bottom here. And that's why this is so important. We'll do that first, okay? So let's do that. Now what we're going to do is let's select all your layers, Command A. We're going to go down to one of the layers here. We're going to do maybe back arm here. We'll click on this little thing here, the parent pick whip. We've used this before in an exercise. We're going to drag that into the torso layer like this, okay? And then let go. And what that will do is all these layers now, if we move the torso, they're going to move along with it, okay? All right, so let's go to the torso layer. Let's deselect, then select the torso layer, okay? Then hit the P key, and we're going to hit the stopwatch. Let's go to the 3-second mark. It says 300 frame, it looks like 300F. And we're going to go over to this little diamond here where it says add or remove keyframe. We're going to add another keyframe so it will be at that position at 3 seconds because we're going to move it in between here. And let's take it up to the 6-second mark here, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add another keyframe. So now we got keyframes. Nothing's happening here, mind you, because we're going to have to move in between here. So we want to move our timeline indicator between 1 second and 15 frames, somewhere in this area. It's going to be between frame 10, the 10F and the 20F. We can see this better if we zoom in here. So if we zoom in here, we want to be at frame 15 of 1 second. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to move, and let's get our selection tool here. We're going to move our astronaut up. And as we move him up, we can hold down the shift key if you want to. And then let go of the mouse, and then let go of the shift key. So now he's doing like this. Okay? So select that keyframe there and copy it, Command C. And then let's scrub ahead forward here. You know, since we're zoomed in here, we're going to have to scrub ahead this way. And we're going to go to the 4-second mark, okay, and 4 second in between the 10 and the 20. So somewhere in here, we're going to zoom in here to see, are we at 15? Yeah, we're at the 15th frame of the 4 second, okay? And then let's just do Command or Control V, and we'll paste that keyframe. So now when we play it, he's going up and down. Okay, very easy. Okay, now we can zoom out here. So when I say zoom out, we're going down to this where we zoom out the timeline all the way so we can see everything. Move our timeline indicator to the beginning. Okay, and now we're going to rotate some stuff. We're going to work on the front leg. Go down to the front leg layer, hit the R button for rotation. And before you rotate it, you see this little thing here, this little, you know, the center point? We're going to move that. So we need to get that pan from behind tool again and move this up so it's going to rotate it from somewhere at the top of his leg here, the top of his hip, okay? And then let's go down to the rotate here, and on you see 0 X and then plus 0.00. The last two, the 0.0 degrees, we're going to rotate that. I'm just going to click on this and scrub it. I say scrub it. I'm moving my mouse so that it moves the leg to this area right here, okay? And then we're going to add in a keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch. Let's go to the back leg, hit the R key. we're going to need to get the pan from behind tool again and move it up so that it's somewhere at the top of that leg here, towards the center where I'm at here, okay? And then we're going to rotate this in like this a little bit, okay? Now I'm going to do Shift P. Now let's hit the stopwatch. So we install a keyframe there. We're at the beginning of our timeline and that's where we need to be. Otherwise, you're going to need to move your keyframes to the beginning, okay? Because this is the position here. We're going to keep this at. Let's go with the front leg and do Shift P. I'm going to drag. I'm going to have to get my selection tool. And we're going to drag the leg down just a little bit so they're both kind of even here, okay? And let's hit the P key, all right? I mean, not the P key. Hit the stopwatch for the position here, okay? All right, now let's go down to layer 4. We'll do Shift P again to bring up position, and then hit the stopwatch, okay? Now, let's just take these frames here. We've got 4 sets of frames here. I'm going to select them all like this. I'm just selecting one, or we can click and drag over. That's another way to get them. Let's copy those, okay? Command C. Let's move to the 3-second mark and do Command V. Okay? Let's go to the end at the 6-second mark and do Command V again. And so now we are installing those keyframes, so those will be in the same location each time he goes down. So now let's go to this area right here on our timeline. Move your timeline indicator to where that keyframe is for the torso in the middle there, which is at the 1 second and 15 frame mark there, okay? And then, as he's up in the air, let's deselect all the layers for a moment, then go back to the front leg layer, because we don't want to move these both at the same time. Now what we're going to do is, we're going to go down to rotation here. You see where I'm at here. I'm going to click and scrub this so the front leg goes back like this, okay? All right, so let's go down to the back leg, and we're going to rotate it forward. So he's doing something like a split there, okay? Now, if we need to, we can move the position of that leg, or maybe we'll go to the front leg and move its position. So we might just drag this down a little bit more. I'm just moving the leg just a little bit, okay? And then we'll do the same with the back leg. We can move the back leg maybe more out like that, so he's even more. We don't want the boot to go past the composition or it will disappear, okay? So main thing is keep these feet within the composition. Keep his antenna, when we drag him up, keep it within the composition, okay? So now let's play this. So he's doing this. He's doing a split, okay? So next, let's drag the timeline indicator all the way to the 4-second and 15th frame, and you'll see it because we've got that keyframe for the torso where the astronaut's all up in the air again. And now, let's rotate. Let's go to the front leg. Click on the front leg layer. Let's rotate that front leg so it goes forward like this. Okay. Now let's go to the back leg layer and go down to rotate and click and drag like this. So now it's doing this, okay? And we might even change the position. Let's go and just move the leg down a little bit, perhaps more like this here, okay? We're gonna go to the front leg and maybe move it a little further down like that so it looks like that. And so now if we hit the play button, this is what he's doing. You know, he's kind of running along here. Okay, so now we need to do his arms, okay? So let's go to his front arm and hit the R button for rotate. Hit the stopwatch. Timeline indicator needs to be set at the beginning, so we install a keyframe there. Let's go to the 3-second mark. Move the timeline indicator there. Let's just go and come over here where it says remove keyframe. We're going to add a keyframe by clicking on that little diamond, okay? Do the same thing again by dragging the timeline indicator all the way to the 6-second mark and add another keyframe here, okay? And make sure you're on the front arm here, okay? There we go. All right. So now we're locking that position for the front arm, but actually, you know what? I did it wrong here. I'm going to undo. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so I just undid twice. Command Z twice, or Control Z. I apologize. I have some tree trimmers in my backyard. They're cutting down some trees, and that's sort of distracting me. So anyway, let me continue on here, okay? All right, so I just want this one key. What I needed to do before I installed those other keyframes was I needed to rotate this. So I'm going to rotate the arm, and mind you, we're going to have to change the pan from the center rotation here again. We're going to have to get the pan from behind tool. We're going to drag it up to his shoulder here, okay? And then let's rotate, go back to the rotate down here, and then we're going to rotate so his arm is like this, okay? And what we're going to do is now we're going to copy this, okay? So now we're going to copy this keyframe, Command C or Control C. Move your timeline indicator to the 3-second mark. Do Command V, so it's going to keep it there. Come all the way to the 6-second mark. Do Command V there, okay? All right, now we're going to do the same thing for the back arm. So the back arm will do R for rotate, okay? We're going to have to get the pan from behind tool again. It's already selected. Move it up towards somewhere in the chest area or somewhere where we would want the arm to be rotated like that. And then let's rotate this arm here so it goes like this, okay? So he looks like that. Hit the stopwatch on the rotate. This is on layer 5 here, okay? Now let's select that keyframe and do Command C. And we're going to do the same thing as we did on the front arm. Move your timeline indicator to the 3-second mark. Do Command V. So we paste that keyframe, okay? Go to the end here to the 6-second mark and do Command V again. And now both their arms are locked. So he looks like this. Well, we're going to drag the timeline indicator to that 1 second and 15th frame here, where everything else is lined up here, okay? Let's go to the front arm layer, and let's rotate the front arm forward. Because when somebody's walking, you know, the leg goes one way and the arm goes the opposite way, okay? So now he does this, okay? So keep your timeline indicator at that 1 second and 15 frame right there, okay? Let's go to the back arm and rotate the back arm. So the back arm rotates so we can see we'll just be able to see his hand a little bit right there popping out, okay? So this is what's happening. I'm moving my timeline indicator to show you, and you can move yours too so you can see, and that's what we get. And he comes back down here, and then he goes all the way back up, and so we drag our timeline indicator to the 4th second and 15th frame where all these other keyframes are lined up. And then we're going to rotate that front arm, and we're going to rotate it back because now the front leg is out front. So we're going to rotate this arm back like this, go down to the back arm layer and rotate it so the arm comes out forward like this. Okay? Now let's hit play. And look at that. See, he's running and hopping. He looks great. We're almost done here, okay? I'm going to do something else here. And I used to not do this because this is about the 3rd time I've done this tutorial. And I'm redoing it because I'm parallaxing. But also I thought, you know what? I want to introduce, we'll go up to torso layer, okay? That squash and stretch. So on the torso layer, hit Shift S for scale, okay? And let's move our timeline indicator forward to the 1 second and 15th frame right here, okay? And let's hit the stopwatch, okay? Let's move the timeline indicator to the 4 second and 15th frame right here, see, like this, and come over here to the scale, go to this little diamond over here at the beginning of this layer here. You've got that little diamond, click on it. That will install that, okay? Because we want him scaled at 100% there. Now let's drag our timeline indicator to the beginning, and we're going to uncheck scale, okay? And we're going to scale him. We're going to go to the first 100, and we're going to make him a little wider, maybe 108, something like that, or 109, okay? And then we're going to go to the second 100 here on the right and drag it down to make him shorter. So remember squash and stretch, because what happens is when a figure's about to jump up, they're going to be shorter, and as they jump up, they get a little elongated, you know. The same thing with that bouncing ball. So now we get this. It's just a little bit of a squash and stretch, but remember, if we bring in one of the dimensions, the other dimension needs to go out. So that's why I'm doing it this way, okay? So I like that. So let's just take that keyframe, select it, Command-C, move our timeline indicator to the 3-second mark, do Command-V, okay? Now move the timeline indicator to the 6-second mark and do Command-V again, okay? And now let's hit the space bar to play it, and you can see him is squashing and stretching. As he comes down, he gets squashed, and as he jumps up, he stretches more, and so it gives him a little bit more, you know, it makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. You know, I like that effect there, and that's one of the reasons why I had you move that pan from behind tool to his foot at the very beginning of this part of the exercise. Okay, all right, now we've got him walking. Let's go to the astronaut art comp. And mind you, if we play this, it's going to play, and then it's going to end. He's going to disappear. All right, so first thing we're going to do is move our timeline, keep it forward here, all the way at the beginning. Next, we're going to go to the layer and right-click. And we're going to go to Time, okay? Enable Time Remapping. And click on that. All right, now it's extended it, but it hasn't looped it yet. Okay, we're going to loop this thing in just a second. So let's move our timeline indicator to the 6th frame here. We'll zoom in here. I'm actually not on it. I actually want to be before it. So I want to be on the 29th frame, right before the 6-second mark, okay? And I'm going to come over here and install a keyframe. I'm going to add a keyframe here, okay? And then I'm going to go to the other keyframe that's on the 6th frame, the first one that was there, and just hit delete, okay? We need to do this first, okay? Now we're going to move the timeline indicator to the beginning. We can shrink our timeline so we can see, so we make sure that we're at the beginning here. And then the next thing I need you to do is this. Hold down your Alt or Option key, okay? And on my Mac keyboard it says Alt in it, and it also says Option. All right, on a PC it may just be Option. I don't know. I'm not sitting on a PC right now. So let me hold that key down, click on the stopwatch. This will happen. Express Time Remapping pops up. We want to come to this little circle with this area here where it says Expression Language Menu. Okay, so we're looking for the arrow with the circle like this. We want to click on that. We want to go down to Property, and we're going to look for Loop Out. Okay? And then we'll just come down below the layer, click off of it. Now hit the space bar. And what you're going to be seeing is, and I know we're all the way zoomed out here. Let's try to zoom in a little bit further here. Let me zoom in. We'll do fit. Is he's looping the whole time. Okay? So that's why I had you pre-compose those layers. So now he's running along here. Okay? He looks great. Okay? So now, and by the way, we should save this. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. I should have done this earlier. I apologize. But I was getting distracted here with my tree trimmers back in my backyard. We'll go to Save As, and we'll just call this Moonwalking. Or you can call it Exercise 3. I'm going to call mine Moonwalking 2 because I've already got a moonwalk in here. And that's the thing is, when you work on a project, you can have multiple projects, multiple versions of it. You can always keep saving as to the same folder if you've got all of your materials, all of your files in that same folder. So we'll do Save. Okay. Now let's go to Moonscape Art. And what we want to do is let's zoom in a little bit. I'm trying to get zoomed in here. Yeah, my scroller wheel has some issues here. There we go. All right. If your scroller wheel is giving you problems, you can always zoom in here. Okay, go to 25%. All right. What we want to do is use your space bar so you can move your astronaut. We're going to turn off the front rock. Okay. So that's the first thing we're going to do is just turn off the front rock for the moment. Okay, we're going to have to do something else too if we watch this later, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, move your timeline indicator to the beginning. All right, we're going to move the astronaut. We're going to get the selection tool here and move the astronaut so he is right here where, and we'll zoom in a little bit more here. I'll do a fit to 100%, or actually, you know what? We're going to go up to 33% so we can see this better. I'm going to have to move this over so we can see it. All right, so you see where my astronaut's located at? We can zoom in just a little bit more, 50% here. My astronaut is right there. I moved him so he is somewhere right where the end of the shadow is and right where that splash is. So he's sandwiched in between those two things, okay? That's what we want him, where we want him to be at, okay? Now let's select the dust layer and use the parent pick whip and drag it into the astronaut art layer. Let's go down to the cast shadow layer. Select it, select the parent pick whip, drag it into the astronaut layer. So now when we move the astronaut, we will be moving all of them at once. Whoops, gotta be on the astronaut layer. So now they can move all at once, okay? So now what we want to do is let's move the astronaut. Let's zoom out just a little bit more here. We'll go to maybe 25% of this. And we're just going to move our astronaut. Maybe he's here, okay? And so when we moved him, all those other two things moved. Also, I held down the shift key so it was sort of stayed in the same position there as I was moving it. And now let's turn on that front rock again, okay? So he's going to be coming out, but let's leave that front rock off for the moment, okay? Leave it off. All right, let's move him. We're going to have to zoom out here more. So we're going to zoom out to, I don't know, 6.5 or maybe 12.5, something like that, so we can see the whole thing here. And we're going to move our timeline indicator to the end, okay? And at the end, we're going to move him all the way off the page, okay? So we're going to move him out like this. Timeline indicator needs to be at the very end here at the 25th second. And then I just move him, hold down my shift key, let go of the mouse, let go of the shift key. Now, if we play this, uh-oh, you know what? Dang, I forgot to install a keyframe. Okay, so undo that. I apologize. Sometimes this is what happens when I do a tutorial. As I lose track of time. All right, so drag your timeline indicator to the beginning. Keep your astronaut here at the beginning, okay, like this. I apologize. Let's go to the astronaut layer. Hit the P key. I should have known this, you know. But you can see it's so easy to make mistakes in this by not installing a keyframe. Okay, move your timeline indicator over to the 25th second mark. And drag our astronaut all the way off. I'm holding down my shift key as I'm dragging him. First I start to drag him, then I hold down my shift key. Then we let go of the mouse, then we let go of the shift key. Now let's play this. And now our astronaut is running across the moon. Okay? And that looks really cool. Now the thing is this is not what we're rendering out here. We need to go back to comp 1. Let's drag our timeline indicator to the beginning here. We can turn the front rock on. I'm going to turn that front rock layer on here. Okay, go to comp 1 here. And now this is our movie. We'll watch it. And our astronaut is running across. Now, here's the deal. At some point, he's going to start to go outside the frame. All right, I'm going to stop it. I can even maybe play a little bit more here. Okay, maybe to this, okay? I'll let him land. All right, I'll stop it. Okay. I need him to be in the center of this frame here. I don't want him to go off here. So what we're going to do is, I just hit the space bar to stop it. We're going to go, and I'm going to look at this mountain. I want you to be looking at where you're located at here, because I want him here. I want him in the center here. And when I go back to this, I'm not going to have this in the center. I'm going to have to be, because we're going to go back to Moonscape Art. See, we're not looking at the center anymore. Let's move him back. Like I said, I'm moving him to where I'm looking at that mountain there, the center of the mountain there. Let's go back to Comp 1 and see if that looks good. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now let's keep, I'm going to go back here, play it again. I move my timeline indicator back. Okay, let him go across. Okay, he's coming to the center of the frame. We want him to try to stay in the center of the frame for a while here, okay? He's almost there. All right, now he's starting to go outside the frame here. Oh, and notice that right there. The command module needs to be moved. Well, first of all, let's let him land, and then I'll hit the stop on by hitting the space bar. I'm stopping my video here for a second. Let's go back. Now, first, before we go back to Moonscape Art, let's look for this mountain right here. We want him somewhere in this location here on this mountain before it gets to the top peak. So I'm looking at this part right here, just to make sense of where I'm going to be at. Let's go back into Moonscape Art, and if we need to, we can zoom in. Okay, my scroller will work that time, and then let's just drag him back so he's at that position right there, and then hold down the Shift key there. Okay, now let's go back to Comp 1. We'll drag the timeline indicator back a little bit more and play it. Like I said, we got to move that command module because actually we may not need to. Okay, let's see. Maybe does he go out of the frame too far, too early here? Actually, I like that. As long as he's pretty much in the frame up until the very end, we're fine. Okay. And mind you, he is not. Now, here's the deal. Sometimes when I've done this, that command module will go in front of him because that layer is sitting on top. And if that is occurring, let's go back to our Moonscape Art. Let's drag that layer 1, that command module, and let's move it underneath maybe the moon's surface. So that ensures that in case his head pops up in front of that command module, he will be in front of it, and the command module will be behind him, okay? That is so key, because this is the first time that I've done this where his head did not coincide with the command module, okay? So, okay, we got this going on now. Looks good. All right, now, drag your timeline indicator to the beginning here, okay? Let's move our composition forward. But, I mean, what I'm doing is I'm using my space bar so I can move it to the we're at the beginning here. Let's turn off that front rock again. Okay. All we want to do is be at the beginning so we can see where he's at. We're going to zoom in here on him. I'm having to use the space bar so I get the grabber hand so I can move him around so I can see things. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of things here. One thing is this dust. So let's hit the T key. That's for opacity. It's at 100%. We're going to hit the stopwatch. Move your timeline indicator forward a little bit. And when he's jumping off here, let's go to opacity and drag this down to 0, or just hit 0 and hit return. So now that will disappear. Now, right where he lands, right when he's landing, we want to install a keyframe. So we'll install a keyframe there. Move it forward just a little bit. Now, when his leg, see that kind of kicking action there he's doing? Somewhere around there, let's raise the opacity up to 100. Okay. Now let's drag our timeline indicator to see what this looks like. All right. So as he goes up and out, that splash disappears. As he comes back down, it reappears just before he kicks off again. And so let's go forward a little bit more here. maybe like right there, and then drag our timeline indicator, not our timeline indicator, keep our timeline indicator where it's at there, go back to opacity and bring this down to 0. Okay? We can also hit Command S for saving. So we'll save it. So now let's select these 3 keyframes here. Okay? I'm just drag over like this to select them both, all 3. Let's do Control C. Okay? Let's move him. I'm using my grabber hand so we can move him out, or we can zoom out. We're going to zoom out maybe to maybe 50% here. Let's move our timeline indicator forward until where he's about to fall again on this, and right when he hits the ground there, do Command V. So now let's move the timeline indicator forward. So as he's kicking off again, that splash pops up that he's kicking up dust. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep going down here, do Command V, and move our timeline indicator. See, it does that good. All right, now let's get our grabber hand by using the space bar so we can see. Let's move our timeline indicator forward. And right when he's hitting the ground, right somewhere right in there, let's do Command V. So by the time his legs move a little bit, it kicks it up again, and we're just going to have to keep doing this over and over again. Do Command V. So he lands, and then it gets kicked up as he's jumping off again. All right, let's move the timeline indicator forward more. Do the same thing here. Command V, or Control V, that is. So anytime you hear me say command, it's Control on a PC, okay? All right, let's move our composition over so we see it. I'm using my space bar for the grabber hand, okay? Move him forward a little bit more. Do Command V. And then one more time here, and I think this might take us to the end. I'm going to scrub it out here. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so now that is happening. So let's go back to Comp 1 and just take a peek at this. We're almost done here, okay? One last thing we got to do is that cast shadow. That cast shadow, in previous versions, I've moved the cast shadow. And in the newest version, what I realized I want to do is, as he's jumping up, that cast shadow should become lighter. And the reason why is because, the cast shadow is the dark. When you have a cast shadow and you have an object that's casting the shadow, and in this case, the astronaut, what we need to do to ensure is that it's the darkest right where he's touching the ground. As he's going up in the air, going further away from the ground, the shadow will become lighter because he's further away and there's more light coming in. So it will become lighter, okay? So let's go drag our timeline indicator to the beginning here. We're going to go back to our moonscape art. We're going to have to turn on that front rock in just a moment. That's very important there, okay? But let's go down to and drag. We're going to drag our composition, or we can zoom out further. We can fit. Yeah, okay, do that here. All right, we'll zoom in on him a little bit. Oh, like I said, I'm trying to work it with my scroller wheel, which sometimes messes up. So anyway, we want to be about like that. Okay, so let's go down to the dust layer. Not the dust layer, the cast shadow layer. Go to the cast shadow layer, hit the T key, so it brings up opacity. All right, so this thing, when I was in Photoshop, the layer was at 66% opacity. And that's when I brought it over, it kept it at that. I'm going to raise the opacity all the way up to 100. So when he's on the ground, it's going to be 100%. We're going to go and hit the stopwatch, okay? All right, as he goes up, at the highest point that he's up, let's drag the opacity down to maybe 50% or even 30%. I'm looking at this here. Yeah, we can probably do maybe 30% there, okay? Drag the timeline indicator forward, and as he hits the ground there, raise the opacity up to 100. All right, we're going to keep doing this here. All right. So as he gets to the highest point there, we'll lower his opacity down to 30. trying to remember to turn on that front rock because I may forget. But we will go back to that if we have to. Okay, so let's go forward here as he hits the ground, all the way back up to 100. Go forward when he's at his highest peak there. Drag that down to 30. Okay, and then let's go forward here a little bit more, and then drag that up to 100. Let's go forward again, and when he's at his highest peak there, I'm gonna have to use my space bar to get my grabber hand and move this composition forward like this so we can get to it. All right, so lower this down to 30 again. If it's not right on 30, that's fine. It could be 29, 28. As he hits the ground again, go back up to 100. We just have to keep doing this. So when he's at the highest, 30. When he's on the ground, 100. And you may be wondering, why am I not just copying the keyframes? Because this is just, this will work this way. I don't mind doing it this way. I can get exactly what I'm looking for. And we're almost here. We're going to go to the end here. Okay. So it's going to go up again. Down to 30. Okay. Go forward again, down to the ground. At 100. Okay, go forward again. He's up in high in the air. Okay, down to 30 again. And then back down. He's on the ground, 100. And then at the very end here, we're just going to move the timeline all the way to the end. And I'm just going to take this all the way down to 0. Okay. So now I'll move our timeline indicator back. We can see how it goes. All right, let's go all the way to the back, move our composition or zoom out so we can see the beginning there. And let's turn on that front rock layer, okay? That's so important. Let's go to Comp 1, drag our timeline indicator to the beginning here. And basically, this is what you should have here, okay? See, that looks pretty good there, okay? And as he comes down closer, the cast shadow gets darker. And then he kicks up that dust and he's just about to move off there. Okay. Very good. And then he finally goes up. And then out of the picture. Okay. And if we need to move him again, see, like at the very end here, let's go here. Maybe he moves out too fast. So let's go back here a little bit maybe. And go to Moonscape Art. Let's go to our astronaut. And let's drag this over. And let's just drag him over just a little bit further here, perhaps. Okay. And let's go back to Comp 1 here. And I'm just dragging the timeline indicator back and playing it again because I want to keep him in frame just a little bit longer and then he goes off. Okay. And that's it. All right. So I'm going to hit the space bar to stop it. Hit Command S to save it. And now we're going to render this out, okay? So we're going to go to Add to Render Queue. All right. Now, I've been telling you that when you render this out, you can render it out at full size. Well, this one you may want to render out at half. Because if you render this out at full size, it's going to fill your computer screen, which is fine. I don't mind. You could do that, all right? And D2L will accept the file. I like to render out at half because it's so large, and I like to put it on my phone so I can watch it and see how it looks. And if it's too large, it's kind of hard to put into your phone, okay? So, or I always drag it into my photos on my Mac. And so I'll go click OK. I'm going to do it at half. If you want to do it at full, that's fine. Make sure this is set to H.264 because it's MP4, okay? We're going to go to Comp 1 here. All right, so we want to save it on the desktop. You want to call this your name. And exercise 3. Okay? I think I spelled exercise wrong. There we go. And then I like to do this where it underscores those parts in between. You don't have to do that. We'll hit save. Then we hit render. And he looks great. And now we upload that file, that MP4, up to our D2L for the exercise. And so I hope this helps you out. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be in class to help you out, okay?